In 1935, Paul Edgecomb works as a corrections officer at Cold Mountain Penitentiary, where he and his fellow guards Brutus Howell, Dean Stanton, and Harry Terwilliger oversee the death row section known as the Green Mile. Among them is Percy Wetmore, a cruel and arrogant man who torments prisoners. But because of his family connections to the governor, he is untouchable. On death row are 3 prisoners: Edouard Delacroix, who often suffers Percy's abuse, the violent and unstable William Wharton, and John Coffey, a huge but gentle and simple-minded black man. John has been convicted of raping and killing 2 young white girls after being discovered crying over their bodies, though he insists he only tried to take it back. Paul begins to doubt John's guilt after witnessing something extraordinary. John cures Paul's painful bladder infection simply by touching him, drawing out the illness and then releasing it in the form of swarming flies. Later, when Percy cruelly kills Delacroix's beloved pet mouse, Mr. Jingles, John urgently asks for the body and miraculously brings the mouse back to life. The guards become convinced that John has supernatural healing powers. The officers, tired of Percy's behavior, strike a deal with him. He can oversee an execution if he promises to transfer to a mental hospital job afterward. At Delacroix's execution, Percy deliberately fails to wet the sponge that helps conduct electricity, causing Delacroix to suffer an excruciating death in front of horrified witnesses. John, overwhelmed by Delacroix's pain, accidentally passes part of it into Mr. Jingles, who scurries away in shock. Later, Paul convinces the other guards to secretly take John outside the prison. They restrain Percy and lock him in a padded cell to keep him from interfering, then sneak John to the warden's home. Warden Hal's wife, Melinda, is dying from a brain tumor, and Paul hopes John can save her. John places his hands on Melinda and draws out her illness, curing her completely, but leaving himself weak and in agony. When they return John to his cell, they release Percy, but John grabs him and transfers the sickness into him. In a trance, Percy shoots and kills Wharton, then collapses into a catatonic state. Percy is eventually committed to the same asylum he once mocked. John then shows Paul the truth by transferring visions of Wharton's crimes into him. Paul finally sees that Wharton, not John, had murdered the 2 little girls. John has been innocent all along. Despite knowing the truth, Paul cannot stop the execution. He even offers to let John escape, but John refuses, exhausted by the constant suffering he feels from the world. He says he is ready to die. Before his final day, John requests to see a movie, having never watched one before. The guards sit with him as they watch Top Hat. On the day of his execution, John tells the guards about his last dream, being with the 2 girls, safe and free. Saddened by the hatred he feels from the witnesses who still believe him guilty, John finds comfort in the guards, who truly care for him. He asks not to wear the hood because he is afraid of the dark. Paul takes his hand one last time before the officers tearfully carry out the execution. Decades later, in 1999, Paul is now 108 years old and living in a retirement home. He watches Top Hat again and shares the story of John Coffey with his friend Elaine, revealing it was the last execution he and Brutus ever performed. Elaine is shocked when Paul shows her that Mr. Jingles, Delacroix's mouse, is still alive. Paul explains that John's power extended both the mouse's life and his own, but he does not see it as a blessing. Instead, he views his unnatural longevity as punishment for allowing John to die. After Elaine's funeral, Paul reflects on his endless years of survival, wondering how much longer he will live, saying, "Sometimes the Green Mile feels so long,